We're here with Rob from financeinsightmatters.com. He's a fractional CFO. He performs accounting for 7- and 8-figure online businesses. And Mr. Rob walked away from elite banking and built clean tech ventures in China, only to discover that most founders are flying blind with their numbers. And Rob, he helps these 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs turn messy financials into real growth engines. So we're going to talk about it, how to get excited about your numbers again, how to get your business in tip-top shape, how to ask for help, how to have strategy, all these things that maybe we forget about if we're pursuing the day-to-day. So we're here on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank. We're sponsored by dfypodcast.com. We handle the podcast backend so you can focus on the conversation. And we're going to have this conversation today with Rob about getting away from flying blind and taking your numbers seriously, the finance hierarchy of needs, and so much more. So, Mr. Rob, glad to have you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for the intro.
You're very welcome. Do you think there might be anything I left out of that intro? What currently has you passionate and so excited?
The one thing you left out is we're not only doing accounting, we're doing fractional CFO, FP&A, and accounting. We're doing the whole finance chain. And what gets me excited, it's AI. It's the fundamental transformation that we're going through in this case. And that's going to have a massive impact on our business, on your business, and on everybody. It's quite tempting sometimes to be in the bubble of the frontier, but I think it's still hard to overestimate the impact that's going to have. So that definitely has me excited and scared.
Same 100% here as well, because AI, like, it's easy to forget that it's not alive, right? You treat it like a magic box, and then it can make mistakes, especially when it comes to numbers. It seems like it's better now,
Yes.
but to wrap my head around it, I think like, okay, if there was like a manual task that would take me like 10,000 hours and it could be done in 10 minutes or 1 minute, like that's how I think of AI. Like if I could flip through every record or kind of like, look at the big scope of things. But what's your approach to that? Because it's so easy for AI just to be like a magic, right? Black box. So how do you stay sane and how do you put it to use and, make money with it?
So we like to use it internally a lot for the pure data side, crunching the numbers, running the metrics, cleaning up data. Everything that's repeatable and factual, that we use AI for. But then the translation to, okay, but what does that mean for our client? What does that mean that the gross margin went up? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What's the story behind it? And what does it mean for the actions that the client has to take? That's where we're doubling down on, because that's the human side that AI, at least in the short term, cannot do nowhere as good as a human can.
Okay, well, fair enough. And so as far as how, like you say, you do the fractional CFO and you do the accounting. And so like, what's the typical like type of business you help? Is there like a certain size, certain industry you prefer?
Anybody without cash money we could work with, but typically we are best suited for 7- and 8-figure online businesses. So a $5 million revenue marketing agency, a $10 million e-com business, that's our sweet spot. And ideally, there's a little bit of complication. So it's multi-country, multi-channel, something that makes it a bit more spicy and a bit more interesting. Because a $10 million e-commerce business with one channel or one product, it's very simple. You don't need us for that. You can do that with all the standard tools. I mean, I'm happy to sell it, but we just don't add a lot of value there. If it's a little bit more complicated, that's when it gets interesting. That's when the human side comes in, and that's where we are really good.
Well, great. And I like your phrasing, right? You say things like interesting and spicy, and it's like it sometimes it's so easy to want to avoid conflict, resistance, difficulty, struggle. But then if you're an entrepreneur, it's like, no, I want that, right? If there's this complex problem of someone selling e-commerce in multiple countries, multiple channels, that's great. That means that that's an unsolved problem, right? That some other competitor hasn't got there first, or there's value, or we can really like unclog a business and like kind of, get them to survive when they might have failed or get them to new heights. And so when you kind of jump into these spicy problems, so to speak, is every client different, or like do you see any like commonalities these days where there's a lot of mistakes being made on repeat?
There's no shortage of mistakes being made. But the typical mistake that we're seeing, and we just onboarded a client last week that is a very classic case for that. People are very easy to make things complicated. This is an agency. They have 4 entities in 3 different countries, but it's actually, they're doing one service and it's all American clients. So they add a lot of complexity, which is great for us. I mean, I like it, it makes it more fun for us, but it adds a lot of complexity, adds cost for them. It removes the transparency for them. And that's just a waste. So the first thing we're going to do with them is clean out all the complexity, try to make it simple again. Still tax optimized, but as simple as possible, so that they don't have to be drowning in 3 different P&Ls and no idea what the actual total is, etc. So the common mistake is really just making things more complicated than strictly needed.
I like it. And I think we've all dealt with that. We dealt with like working with some weird CRM or some weird system. And it seems like the problem with that is then you end up with someone in the organization has job security, don't they? There's only one person knows like, oh, well, I have to like copy these 3 columns and merge these P&Ls all together. Like one person kind of knows the magic, and they don't document, they don't write it down because they don't want to be replaceable. That's good for the individual, but not the larger whole. So we need to get that cleaned up and pursue simplicity in all sorts of ways. And so as far as like the like your own journey, right? It's always great to hear about when someone has their own ups and downs, their own roller coaster, because you've learned things that can be reassuring to us. So like, what's your own path been like? Have you really struggled? Have you had any of these difficulties?
Oh, yeah. I learned that the hard way. So in my China days, I lived in China for 8 years. I had a company there with a partner trying to build clean tech ventures there. And we were really, really sophisticated in tax optimizing everything. So we had more entities than we had people in the team. And that's definitely in hindsight a red flag that you want to avoid. So we were so good at optimizing for tax, but we forgot to make a profit. So we ran a pretty complex operation, had a lot of cost, didn't make any money. So we wasted all that time and energy in trying to optimize for taxes. That was quite the struggle because I spent 7 years in that business trying to get it off the ground. And after 7 years, the conclusion was it survives. I can pay the rent, but that hockey stick growth that we were aiming for, that never materialized. So that's been quite the grind. And if the one lesson I've learned from that, and I would still hope that nobody does it the way I did it, is if you're running a business and it's not working as good as you want, you double down or you get the hell out. Like muddling through for many, many years, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of effort, and the opportunity cost of your time is insane. Because rather than muddling through on a business that's not really picking up, you could instead be spending time on another business that would take off. And you're going to get a much higher return on that.
I like the way that you put that, where it's you're saying go to one extreme or the other, right? Either quit the business or double down on what you should be doing. And you're also saying it's not giving up, because it's like, well, you have to do something with your life. So if you shut down business A and you start up business B, you're not just saying like, I'm out forever. You're just applying your attention and your time where it should be applied. And so, it's great to it's always great to talk to an accountant, a numbers person, because I don't know what it is about it, but there's a mindset, right? Where like when they're like numbers focused and they're about like making the system work, it's refreshing, and like it helps me to focus. And I know that you have some of these terms and technology you teach, right? Like there's a finance hierarchy of needs, for example. Is that your term?
That is our term. I don't think I can claim we invented it, but it's definitely one of the key things that we're trying to teach, because people come to us and like, oh, I want high-level CFO advisory and I want all these fancy things. But when we started Insight Matters, I started as a one-man fractional CFO business. And every time you get a new client, the first thing you do is show me the numbers, show me the reports. Where are we? Like, what's the business like? Because there's obviously a reason they reach out to us. 9 out of 10 cases, they can't give me reliable numbers. So they're willing to pay for a CFO, but there's no information that the CFO can actually use. So that's an absolute waste. So the financial hierarchy of need is a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can want to go to the highest level, but you need to make sure that the lowest levels are in place first. And in finance, that's accounting. It's boring. I'm not an accountant myself. I find it very, very tedious and boring, but it is so important that it's done right. Because if that's the source of truth for everything in your organization, you're going to decide your salaries and your own dividends based on the financials. So that has to be good. If your accounting is good, then you can build all the fancy stuff on top of it. Then you can actually use it for planning, for reporting, for whatever you want to use it for. But if the foundation is weak, like a building, anything you build on top of that is utterly unreliable and dangerous. So that's one of the coin I use to phrase is, the accounting is too important to leave to accountants, because it is so important to done right in a way that actually matches your business. That should be a non-negotiable.
That's powerful. That's important. And you use this term clean. So you're saying it's important to have the clean numbers that you have. That way you have a real source of truth, that because then if it's a bad foundation, then everything else will crumble. So have those real numbers, especially when seeking out someone like your organization, looking for this CFO. And speaking of like hiring or adding to the team, I know that like a big part of entrepreneurism is getting other people involved, right? Not doing it yourself. And I know like that runs counter to my nature, and I fight it all the time, because I know like in order to grow, I need to, for whatever reason, that limiting belief, it's in my head, I have to like override that. And I've been a lot better in the last few years, like hiring, but I think I kind of double check myself, right? And especially when it comes to like money and hiring like an accountant or a CFO, there's like, I imagine there's a fear with some people of like, well, if it's in bad shape, they're afraid of someone looking at it, right? It's like, if I'm so unhealthy, I'm afraid to go to the doctor, right? I have a cavity, I'm afraid to go to the dentist. What will they say? So do you see this kind of fear? Are people ever like hesitant or shy or worried sometimes when they approach you?
Yes, because essentially, I like all the examples you give. We used to call it, they're going naked in front of us, because we see everything that's under the hood, every ugly nook and cranny. So yeah, there is an amount of shame for that. But as an entrepreneur, hopefully you realize this is a problem. You can either look away and let it get worse, or you can just confront it, get it over with. And I can promise you, no matter how bad your business looks, like under the hood, we've seen worse. We've seen $30 million e-commerce businesses running on Excel sheets. And we've seen owners that have absolutely no idea what they're doing, with chaos, with mismanagement. We've seen it all. So don't worry. We've seen it all. Just like your GP, they've seen it all. It's hard to imagine you have a problem or a situation that actually shocks them.
Oh, nice.
So better just get it over with, because then you can focus on the cure and on the next growth phase, rather than hiding from the problems.
That's great. So treat it like the doctor. They do this all day, every day. They've seen, like, it's the first time for you, but it's a 2000th time for them, right? A doctor might see like a hammer up someone's butt or something. Like they've seen way worse. And so it's similar thinking with the numbers and the CFO. And it seems like a pattern of our conversation today is like reducing things down to like a binary decision, right? Like you mentioned earlier, double down or quit the business, or you know, the numbers are clean or not, or hire the CFO or don't hire the CFO. Like get it drilled down to like, just, am I doing this or am I not doing it? And if it's too confusing, like how do I kind of rate the decisions, or how do I reduce the variables? Which just like that simple yes or no kind of answer. And a big leap that some people make is exiting their business, isn't it? And it's like that. And I have to admit,
Yes.
like, I don't come from a business background. I'm more a computer programmer. So when I started coming across these kind of serial entrepreneurs, they grow a business, sell it, or buy it and build it and sell it. It was like, what a cool way to live, right? And especially if there's someone like you who can fix up the numbers, it's kind of like fixing up an old house, right? You have a fixer upper and you say, hey, it's old, it's falling apart, I fix it up and I could sell it, or it's in such good shape, like I would love living here and what a good place to be. But I know like that getting your business into sellable condition is like a multi-year process and need to think
Yes.
ahead. And I can only imagine the ways that that can go wrong. So as a financial numbers guy, what do you have to say about exiting a business, or maybe just your thoughts on it, your hot take on this sort of thing?
So there's two parts. One is, if you want to sell the business, you have to have clean books. We've been on multiple deals, both buy side and sell side. And on one of the cases, we were on the buy side. So our client wanted to buy another business. And the seller had this nice story about how good the business was, how sticky the customers were. Absolute beautiful story, and why the business was worth so insanely much. But when we started digging into the numbers, we realized that he was manipulating the client retention rates. So I'll spare you the details, but it means that the lifetime value of a customer was not 3 years, but about 1 year. So the whole story that he was telling us was immediately like, we didn't trust it anymore. So we started digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more you start digging, the more you will find, because almost every company has some things that you can find. So if you're on the sell side, you want to prevent that, because the number one thing that kills a deal is breaking trust. You on the sell side, you're selling a story. This business is a great business because we've done this, we can get to there, and you're building that story. And you want a buyer that believes that story. Because if you're having a buyer that just comes in and says, I want the lowest price for this business, you're going to end up with a low price. If you have somebody that says, hey, yeah, you said 3 years ago you're going to build this business like this, and you have actually done that, and you have the track record to show that all the plans you made were realistic, and now this is the next plan for the next 3 years, you have a lot more credibility to actually make that story trustworthy. So if you start a couple of years in advance with this longer term plan and deliver on that, a potential buyer can see that and they will say, hey, this is actually valid. We're not going to just look at what you've done in the past, but we're going to pay you based on what this business is likely to become in the future. And that means sometimes a multi-million-dollar difference just by planning earlier.
Very nice. So it pays off just because
Yes.
the difference. It can be such a great deal, but then if the numbers are clean or if the trust is broken, then it all falls apart and all that time and people is wasted. Versus if things are done right with proper planning, then it can be many millions of dollars. And it's like you fast forward or you play games with time, right? Because there's this business that you have, and if you hung on to it, it might like slow. It's like when they say if you win the lottery, right? You can get the lump sum or you can get the payments dished out over 50 years. It's like, well, if I could hang on to this business or I could sell it now and retire or build something else and sell that. It's like there's such a cool game to play. It's like on a whole, it's like not even a whole other level. It's like 10 levels away from the game that a lot of people play. And it seems that it requires some discipline and some uncomfortableness and awkwardness of just like dealing with and so many people like hate numbers, right? And even the ones that loved math in school, they say, well now we're getting into money. That's a whole other nightmare. So it's like, well, it's more of a hard problem, but with a huge reward at the other side if you can just get your finances in order and ask for help and just kind of deal with some of these stuff, right? Get the right systems and processes in place. So you and I have jumped around all kinds of just fascinating topics, right? You're talking about cleaning up a business and having kind of that entrepreneurial mindset, focusing on the right optimization factor, right? Not focusing on the taxes, focusing on the profit as like the driver of growth. So many different topics. But hey, you're the star of the show here, Mr. Rob. So in the conversation we're having, do you think there might be something really important that I should be asking you about? I just don't know what to ask you.
I think the most important thing is not necessarily a question, but it's like my personal pet peeve. I'm a big believer of Stoicism. Focus on what you can control. There's a lot of things outside there that will impact your business, that will impact an exit, that will impact your life that you don't have any control over. But there's a lot of things that you do. So try to focus on that. And that it means also controlling the data quality in your books. That means controlling how you deal with that, and keep it simple. That's definitely the things under your control. And simple is not always sexy, but it is very, very effective.
Very nice. And that's a huge advice, right? It's understated how important that is, of focus on what you can control, because they say like you can only really hold like 5 items in your head at once, right? A phone number is only a certain length. Your car sitting at a stoplight, you notice like the car behind you, the stoplight, maybe a road sign, but like that's it. You can't hold 30 different things in your head. And it's like, if you don't have this the Stoicism awareness you're talking about of focus, like if you can control it, then do something about it. If you can't control it, let it go. And it's like, if you have all this chaos, there's no self-awareness. And then when you kind of figure out what's within your zone, then the possibilities increase, because you say, hey, I have more choices than I thought, and there's more that I could accomplish. I just needed to like simplify, like we've been saying, and kind of reorganize, reconfigure, and especially with these unsexy topics that we're talking about, like your finances and getting your numbers in order and just righting the ship if your business has been unnecessarily too much of a struggle. So man, what a fascinating conversation we've been having. And if someone says, okay, I needed Rob and his team yesterday, I'm the 7 and 8 figure business, I need a CFO, fractional CFO, or I need the accountants to go and figure out like what there is there anything that you wish that a prospective client knew ahead of time? Like we already mentioned having the clean numbers, but just to like prepare someone to contact you, what do you wish they would know?
Honestly, there's nothing that I wish they know. It's more about the attitude. Are they very open to learn and improve? Nothing is worse for us than somebody who is very defensive or trying to hide all the stuff that's under the carpet. Go open into the conversation. The more transparent you are with what the mess is, what the situation is, what your plans are, what your strategy is, the easier it is for us or for anybody else in our space to actually help you achieve your goals.
Okay, fair enough. So get naked, as we've been saying, in front of the doctor, right?
Yes.
Be honest and transparent and get the problem solved, because if you're fighting your own CFO and accountant with this, then you're hurting yourself, right? You're here to get to some improvement. And so if someone wants that improvement, what's the website? Where should someone go?
You can either go to financeinsightmatters.com, or if you're just looking to schedule a call with me directly, go to connectrob.com.
Ooh, okay. So connectrob.com if they want to schedule right now. And then Finance Insight Matters is the website where they provide financial results for 7 and 8 figure online businesses. So you can stop limiting your growth with smarter financial strategy. That's financeinsightmatters.com. CFO services, financial planning and analysis service, and accounting services. They can help you out, right? If you're an agency, e-commerce, or digital business, then there's someone that you can talk to. And it doesn't hurt to just have this conversation, right? And if some of these things befuddled you a little bit that Rob was talking about, and you say, oh my gosh, I'm one of those businesses that still runs things on the Excel spreadsheet, or I don't even know the money coming in or out, or I do want to exit one day, but I'm afraid of what Rob told me about when the guy said the customer retention was 3 years, but it was 1 year. Like, I don't want to make that mistake on accident. I want to have a successful outcome. All these things, they can simplify, they can clear it up for you by having that strategy call. So go to financeinsightmatters.com. There's a button right there above the top of the fold, says book your strategy call. And he said an even easier way is connectrob.com, and financeinsightmatters.com is the place to go. And Mr. Rob, you've dispensed so much wisdom to us so far. I want to ask for one final favor, a tiny little soundbite is if you have a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you, what comes to mind?
The lesson is really the one that I learned. Keep it simple. It is so easy to complicate it. Keep it simple, stupid.
I love it. Keep it simple. That's great advice for us all. And so much so when it comes to your numbers and your money. So financeinsightmatters.com. As we've said, they're fractional CFO, FP&A, and accounting for 7 and 8 figure online businesses. Finance built for growth, delivered with quality. That's financeinsightmatters.com. And thank you so much, Mr. Rob, for showing up, educating, and entertaining us. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.